It's time for the Access of Easy podcast, the weekly technology digest that keeps you ahead of the curve. Brought to you by EasyDNS.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Access of Easy number 330. My name is Joey here with Len. Buddy, what is going on over there? How the heck are you?
Living the dream. Still in the basement, but still living the dream nonetheless.
Love to see it.
Ending up 2023 on a good note, I hope. Yeah. How about you, Joey?
Good. I think I'm getting a little sick. I was telling you, so I'm going to go to the doc after this and just see if they got any ideas, because I don't want to be sick over the New Year's break if I can avoid it. But that aside, Len, things are good. Had a good Christmas. Everyone's happy, healthy. Good to see. Hope you guys are the same. Now, this week, we have the same story as usual. If you want to subscribe to this podcast, you can do it anywhere you get your podcasts, or accessvz.com, subscribe to the newsletter, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, or subscribe anywhere you can. And I think if you give your email for the newsletter, you get about 10% off your next domain renewal or your next EasyDNS purchase, which is great. Lots of discounts to be had. So with that, Len, last week's quote: Christmas is the spirit of giving without a thought of getting. It is happiness because we see joy in people. It is forgetting self and finding time for others. It is discarding the meaningless and stressing the true values. That was from Thomas S. Monson. No one got that. This week's quote: be at war with your vices, at peace with your neighbors, and let every new year find you a better man. That's a great quote. If you know who that's by, no Googling, of course, put it in the comments, and you get your next renewal on the house at EasyDNS, which is great. So make sure you take a crack at that. But again, don't Google, don't pervert the process. Okay, we're trying to be honest people here. Len, we got about
Temptations?
What's that?
Think it's by the Temptations?
I don't know. I doubt it. That's a little before my time. I'll take your word for it if you think it is. Do you think it is?
Well, that song "War," what is it good for? Right. That's.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's where that came from. But I guess we'll find out next week. In the interim, though, we have 5 stories, some CanCon today, Len, for the for the people who are interested in Bill C-18 and what's going on with the Online News Act. But anyway, we can get started wherever you like. What do you think?
Yeah, and let's go right to that News Act, C-18. We talked about this at length on the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast, and we have talked about it here, I'm pretty sure, at least once, maybe more than once. Anyways, this News Act, the Online News Act, Bill C-18, everybody in Canada should be aware of it outside of Canada. While it's an interesting piece of legislation. But this legislation was recently amended too at that, and these changes have drawn some criticism by some people, because they're saying that this may be favoring larger media outlets over some smaller ones, because the act was initially created to support news outlets financially. And the government recently announced that they have received $100 million from Google or Alphabet. I don't know if that was 100 million US or Canadian. I'm assuming it's Canadian, but whatever. Then the interesting thing about that, they're going to be receiving $100 million every year from Google, and that's going to be tied to the official number of inflation. So if inflation is underreported, well, Canadian government is going to be ripped off as a result of this. But however, most of the money that they're going to be receiving from Google is going to be directed towards larger media companies. So, the ones, the CBCs, the CTVs, and the likes. And this decision that Google decided to pay up the money was because, Google was threatening to pull the search engines, the links from Canada. So they came to an agreement in the end. So in terms of that respect, it seems to be okay. But critics of C-18, they're arguing that this still harms these smaller media outlets because it's limiting the revenue that's going to be shared by the social media traffic. And they are saying that the act gives the government too much control on how much to distribute the money and who they're choosing to distribute the money to all these news outlets. And there's also a theory that this could potentially lead to censorship, because if they're going to be paying or giving money to certain outlets, well, they may be forthcoming to promoting whatever agenda is being promoted by the government. But overall, these recent changes to C-18, these amended changes, are raising concerns about the future of Canadian journalism. And a lot of people have been talking about this for some time, but this is another maybe nail in the coffin that some people would say. But anyways, this could potentially lead to consolidation in the media industry, because you're going to have a few of these larger companies that are going to be receiving a slice of the pie, and these smaller ones, unfortunately, they're going to be shut out, and they're going to be fighting for whatever scraps they could find which is too bad. But this is the reality of it, and yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. But this is just the way it is right now.
How is this at all, putting the eventual result in doubt, right? You can't prop up newsrooms with government money and expect that they remain impartial or expect that they remain profitable. One of the things we don't talk about a lot is that when you put money into industries to prop them up or to, get them started, get them off the ground in some cases, I think about EVs the same way, actually. What you see, Len, is the need to innovate disappear. And you've seen that with these major newsrooms. Worse, there's a story on my homepage here that's related to this about how the spin on this is that Google eventually caved, right? But as the article mentions, basically this rewrite is looking at the failure of the initial ask from Google and from Meta and from all these other companies and saying, look, we're not going to be able to actually prop up some of the ways for some of the institutions, organizations, or media outfits that we wanted to. So now it's only going to go to the biggest, most trusted sources, right? This is really a mask off moment, I think. Suddenly you don't care about like Aboriginal reporting or LGBTQ reporting or like, local reporting up north or anything like that. All you care about is Torstar and their brethren. And that's the sort of biggest microphone for you and your party. You're seeing that now in the way that this money is being distributed. So not a surprise. To your point, do people still think the media is impartial in Canada? Like, I can't imagine they do. I was actually just talking, I was saying it to you. I was walking my dog. One of my neighbors used to work for the Hamilton Spectator, and they're laying off, tons and tons of people. They lost their print building. They've moved to a much smaller operation. They're sort of in decline, right? A significant decline period. And I think a lot of other newspapers would be experiencing the same thing if not for these sorts of stimulus opportunities, right? I can't imagine that they remain impartial. It sounds like you feel the same way.
Yeah, people for the most part are seeing what they truly are, and it's not just they. Everybody is biased, right? Even you and I too. We come with the bias as well. It's just the reality of it. But if you have the medium of TV and radio to basically give your information to pass on your narrative to somebody else, to the masses, that's a very powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it could be abused. It has been abused in the past. And I'm not going to say it's happening yet. I don't want to get my wrist slapped, but you could look at other parts of the world where state-controlled media, for instance, and you go look at the Soviet Union or whatever, currently in North Korea, and it's a very, very powerful tool. Now, as for people that are finding out that they're less likely to trust the news sources, it's growing by the day. But there's still a large number of people that trust whatever information comes from these sources, and they don't think twice. They just hear about it, and that's it. It's stuck in them for whatever reason. They grew up in an environment that they trusted it, and I'm looking at more of the older people specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I know some that in my life that they read the news, they watch the news, and they believe everything that comes from the news. That's too bad.
Yeah, it is. We'll see what happens with all this stuff. As always, I mean, we're not going to leave this one alone. I'm sure it'll be a story on this program and on CBP going forward. It's too big not to be.
Mm-hmm. And we could just transition over to National Amusements. This is a very interesting story because in December 2022, a year ago, hackers infiltrated the systems of National Amusements. This is the owners of CBS and Paramount. So it's a very, very large organization here. And what they did through this infiltration, they stole the personal information of tens of thousands of people. And sadly, this breach went undetected for months. Finally, the company figured it out, and they disclosed it back in August 2023. But unfortunately, they were not able to disclose or figure out exactly what information was stolen. So that remains unclear. But this could potentially include information that was stolen, like financial information, like bank accounts, credit card numbers, because you got to figure out how many people do they employ, all the people under their belt, and all this information that they have. It's pretty damning that they haven't figured out exactly what was stolen. And they haven't confirmed whether the breach affected customers or employees, but they're basically remaining tight-lipped about this whole incident. And this isn't the first time they had this. National Amusements had this type of problem back in August 2023. There was a separate data breach at that time as well. So they seem to be subjected to a few of these in the past, at least 2 of them in the past 12 months. Very big company. They have a lot of information. It's up to them to figure out what has happened and to disclose exactly what has happened, who's been impacted, how they were impacted, so people can brace themselves. Right now, I would imagine a lot of people that are under their belt that have given up their information, either as customers or employees to this company. They're wondering what's going to happen to them. Bank account information, account numbers, credit card numbers. Man, again, they're going to get the proverbial 1 year of credit monitoring service, and it's going to try to appease them. But we hear this time and time again, and it's pretty sad that companies like this, they have all this information and they don't have the proper security protocols to stop it. Whatever, screw them. I'm talking about National Amusement, not the people that were impacted.
Yeah, no,
I
for
feel bad
sure.
for the people that were impacted.
For sure. It's funny, like we talk about on the show all the time, the gap between the incident and the reporting. Here, the private media conglomerate, I'm just quoting from the story, the private media conglomerate said in a legally required filing with Maine's Attorney General that hackers stole personal information on 82,128 people during a December 22 data breach. How long ago was that, Len?
A year ago.
Is Viacom publicly traded? I believe they are.
Yeah,
so I mean, how many people check the stock price here? Tradition like no other. Last 6 months, it's down.
Oh, it's probably gone up. Oh, really?
Yeah, down it's up 4% this month, down 1% or so in the last 5 days. I mean, the problem I have is twofold, right? One, the people who are affected are not really notified. I don't think, anyways. I can't imagine they're telling people who are affected, and then the news is not leaking, so they're not telling anybody. And then on top of that, people buy the stock, man. Like if you're buying the stock of a company that just got by a hacking group, that's not fair. You're supposed to know that. That's material information, right? It's something that should be disclosed, and it wasn't. And you've seen this more and more. So, as you say, you wish the best for the people who are affected, but I don't have much sympathy for the companies involved. Honestly, they should be facing penalty for waiting this long. I really do believe that. I'm not sure why it's not illegal to do this kind of thing, but this is a huge sort of conglomerate, controlling stake in Paramount and CBS, like you mentioned. They own tons of cinemas as well. So you can imagine like payment information at those places, like what exactly was compromised. There's not really a lot of details. Paramount customer names, date of birth, and social security numbers. Probably more, honestly, right? Why stop there? I don't know how much more they would have, but it seems to me unlikely they would stop there. Like, where's the addresses and things like that? I'm sure those are involved as well, although I don't see it here. So yeah, not great. Not great. You don't want to have a problem like this going to the movies, but here we are.
And they got your viewing habits as that, so they know what you've watched. But that's the most damning thing.
They can finally target you with the next Mean Girls spinoff.
So if you watch one of those romantic comedies, you're gonna get some targeted ads towards you anyway.
Good luck.
Well, there's some reports that a recent licensing deal has been struck between OpenAI, and that's the people that are in charge of ChatGPT, and Axel Springer. It's a large European media company, and this is stirring up debate within the journalistic community. And the agreement allows OpenAI to incorporate articles from Axel Springer publications into its AI products. And this is raising questions about fair compensation for writers and the future of the media landscape as we transition more into the age of AI. And critics of this deal, they're pointing out that the individual journalists were not consulted before this was inked. And the writer advocacy groups and some journalists themselves expressed concerns that the agreement primarily benefits Axel Springer. And I can see that. And that's going to be at the expense of the creators who work to fuel these AI models. And these guys, and gals, they're worrying that writers will see little to no financial gains from this partnership. And this is going to create a further gap in pay inequality, and the exploitation of the media industry. So there are other people that are saying that there's, this could be decent move, but I don't know. I would be very cautious about this. Any optimism, I would just sweep to the side, because this is going to have some implications moving forward. The people that are using ChatGPT are using it more and more. It's becoming a more prominent tool these days. And if it's going to be tapping into Axel Springer stuff, it's going to give them more prominence. And again, like we mentioned before with the C18, it's going to be at the expense of what? Well, these smaller companies and these smaller outlets, the individual journalists, they're going to be devalued. Their work is going to be devalued. Their income is going to be further squeezed as a result. So this doesn't seem to be a step in the right direction, but there's no way to stop this because this is, a private company. They're making a private deal. They're free to do so. But unfortunately, people are using AI, ChatGPT more and more every day. And this is going to make this deal even more beneficial to the company Axel Springer. And that's too bad in my eyes.
This is at the same time that I think the New York Times is suing OpenAI for its inclusion or its use of Times media pieces, contributions. I don't know exactly what phrase you would use, because they want to be fairly compensated. There's a clear issue here between, generative AI and these large language models and people who are doing the work on the ground to, provide the data, right? There's two questions here, right? One is, what did you agree to when you signed on with your employment contract with what's the name of this place, Springer or something?
Axel Springer.
Axel Springer, yeah. What is the nature of your contract? Did you sign off on distribution allowances, in perpetuity for everything you write? Probably, if I had to guess, because they would not only, even if they didn't consider AI, which they probably didn't, they certainly considered like redistribution and other channels to share this stuff. They're not interested in paying you, the writer. Reporters and journalists are not making a killing or living in, the Hamptons for a reason. The other thing I would say, Len, is, does this look to you like something that's going to improve the quality of the relationship between reporters and their employer, or their employer and the reporters union? Or does it look to you something like is going to accelerate the adoption of strong LLM to write articles? Don't forget, I think we talked on this air a little while ago. I don't know if we did or not, but if not, I'll share the story now. Sports Illustrated was using AI writers and AI photos and AI biographies for people who didn't exist. And they were writing stories on the website. And I think Wired was the one who found this problem through their investigative reporting. This is already happening probably in a lot of places. And so what you don't have to worry about with AI writers is that they're going to ask for more compensation down the road. To me, this is, again, like sort of in the similar vein as what we were talking about earlier with the Canadian media. This is all kind of sliding one way, and to fight against it, I think, is a mistake. Now, most times I would say there's a way to adopt and improvise and overcome this, but I don't know, Len, for the average journalist who writes sort of beat stories based on sound bites that they're not necessarily even getting at press conferences with athletes, for example, or in political media scrums, like if you're not in the White House, why do you need to do the work? Why can't I just feed the soundbite to an AI and have the AI write the piece and just have one person polish up 6 or 7 of them and put them out? To me, this is not good for journalists. I'm not sure that it's good or bad for journalism. I don't really have an opinion on that at the moment, but certainly this is a change in the landscape that is not welcome by the people on the ground, right?
Mm-hmm. You might as well pair it up with UBI, so you have UBI AI, and then this works really well with the journalist community. We could get.
It's not far off. It's not far off, right? So
it appears that's the case, but
yeah,
Ubisoft, that's a huge video game company.
You play Assassin's Creed? Are you an Assassin's Creed guy? I think that's the biggest title, right?
Played it in the past. It's been a few years. 3, 4 I've played.
It's not a game I like that much, but I know it's very popular. I don't know how good they are these days, but I remember for the Xbox 360, Assassin's Creed 2 was like a mind-numbingly good experience coming off the PS2 era, for sure.
I like how they incorporate history into the story.
You know what? You saying that just makes me mad because you refuse to play God of War, and they do the same thing in that game. And it's like an objectively better game. And now I'm mad. Now I'm upset. I don't like this. I don't know why. Why did I bother with this question?
And I sold my God of War game.
I know you did. Stupid. I hate it. I can't stand it.
I'm happy because I got Bitcoin with it.
Oh my God.
And I'll get the game back at a later date when it's much cheaper. Anyways,
whatever.
So Ubisoft, like we mentioned, it's a very huge, massive video game company. And they're investigating reports about a potential data breach, and this is following evidence from security researchers. And this all took place in a very small window of opportunity. An unknown threat actor, they accessed Ubisoft's infrastructure in a roughly 48-hour period of time. This was just this month, December 20th. And after that, they were locked out. And the targets were after some really interesting information. They were attempting to steal Rainbow Six Siege user data. but they were unsuccessful. And lots remain unknown at this time as to details as for the attackers, how they breached Ubisoft, and if other data might have been accessed. So this remains unclear at this time. And there's right now Ubisoft, they're actively investigating this, but really they're saying there's no potential impact on users, but they're not saying for certain that there isn't. And this isn't the first time Ubisoft has faced a data breach, and there was a major incident back in 2020. This affected millions of users. So this is not the first time they've gone through this. And Ubisoft, just like the CBS company, the parent company, National Amusements, these are big companies. They have all this information, and it should be, they should do better at keeping this information to ensure nothing goes out. Now, in this case, we're not sure exactly what was taken. Potentially, maybe no information from users was stolen, but we don't know. And it's still relatively recent. December 20th this took place, so they need more time to figure out exactly what has transpired. But I do hope nothing was taken from users. But another thing that we should be bringing up here is you should be very careful about what information you want to share with these companies. Because every time you share information with a Ubisoft or whoever, well, that information is now in their possession. So make sure if you're going to give anything, be very careful. And even if you're going to give an email address, make it an email address you don't tend to use. So spin up a Proton Mail email address that you specifically use for crap like that. Send that out instead. And that way you're not going to get impacted in case this information is stolen. So this is incumbent on you, listener and viewer, to ensure that you control your information and don't give it up properly.
Right. I don't have much to add to this, except that Rainbow Six only has like 40,000 active players. So that's a weird target, right? Why would they be targeting Rainbow Six Siege data? Is it just easy to get? Was it low-hanging fruit? It wasn't that low-hanging. They couldn't get it, obviously. But, question needs answering, I think. What's in the Rainbow Six data that's so appealing to a data thief? I don't know. Hard to say, right? Because what do you really share? Like, assuming that's like a Steam game or a PlayStation game, like you're sharing your email, maybe payment info is there. That could be one, I guess. I don't really know, but it doesn't sound like user data is including payment info in the story. So yeah, I don't know. We'll keep an eye on this one too. Ubisoft, you got to figure this out, man. Big manufacturers like this have a lot of information. It's a big honeypot, like you mentioned. This shouldn't be happening to companies like this, especially because they're in the tech side, right? I expect it from, as we talk about all the time, like hospitals, governments, whatever. They mess this stuff up often, it seems like, unfortunately. But for Ubisoft to do it, not great. Not great. 48 hours the attacker was roaming free in their systems. Long time.
I'm waiting for the movie to come out. And I'm wondering if there's going to be any information they stole, how many tea bags were done by users. Is that information, is it documented? Because that's very important information. You got to get those guys that do a large number of tea bags, they're probably spending a lot of time on their target ads towards them. And it's valuable information here. Anyways,
people don't know what teabagging is. Look it up if you don't know. Play first-person shooters, teabagging. Yeah.
Well, check it out. I don't want to
find out.
Anyways, let's talk about some reports on a cyber espionage campaign that's carried out by Peach Sandstorm.
5 out of 5. That's a no-brainer. 5 out of 5.
Peach Sandstorm, 5 out of 5?
Yeah, I think that's a bomb. That's a great name. That's so original. Peach Sandstorm. Who's calling it? Everyone else is using like elite speak. These guys, they don't care. Peach Sandstorm, 5 out of 5. Nice one from Iran's cyber military there.
Wow, maybe 2 out of 5 for me. I don't know.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I'm giving it 2 because it's Peach, and it kind of sounds like the character Peach from the Mario game. I don't know. Doesn't Peach Sandstorm? I don't know. Anyways,
I don't know.
Well, this is an Iranian state-backed hacker group, and they're targeting global defense networks. And Microsoft researchers, they're the ones that revealed the campaign. And this is involving a custom backdoor dubbed false font. What is false font? Well, it allows remote access to infected systems and deployment of additional malicious tools. That's the only information I was able to obtain. So the Peach Sandstorm has focused on organizations in the satellite and defense sectors aiming to steal sensitive information. That is a very ingenious way of getting information. Think of all the information that is being sent to and from these satellite systems, and also the defense sector as well. And Microsoft identified this campaign due to consistent interest in defense targets and similarities in past Sandstorm activities. So they're not covering their tracks all that well. And the full extent of this, it remains to be unknown. So they're trying to figure out, and they're asking all the people, all the companies in the defense field, and also the ones that are responsible for setting up these satellite systems, to be more diligent and figure out if anything has been compromised. Because, you know, these state-sponsored cyber attacks, it's happening more frequently. Iran seems to be the one of them that seems to be more prevalent these days.
Mm-hmm.
And given their involvement with what's happening in the Middle East, you see what's happening between Palestine and Israel, and Iran's I don't want to say too much. You could read between the lines.
They're one of the moving parts, right? That's for sure.
Yeah. They could be a major player to really throw a wrench in what is going on in global information exchange. And if they can knock out some satellites, if they can knock out some global defense systems, especially prominent ones that are run by the United States, for instance, this could make them vulnerable to an attack. And it could also make citizens vulnerable in other ways. If they knock out, say, satellites for providing cell data and stuff like that,
mm-hmm.
well, then people are more reliant these days now on their cell phone. Very few people have landlines these days as a result. And, you know, people would go, I mean, think of all the people that just haven't lived in the world without a cell phone. And if you knock out their cell phone, it's going to be harder for them to actually function as a human being. So, yeah, this is going to be becoming more and more of a problem moving forward. And Iran, just given their involvement here, they're becoming a huge player. And I don't know what to say, but maybe we shouldn't piss them off too much. But what do I know? You know, I'm just some guy in a basement, and I have very little say in all this.
I'm not going to add much to this, except that it's amazing that Microsoft catches all these threats a million other places, but can't ever seem to figure out how to lock up Teams, Outlook, and the Office suite. You know, this is like the first 3-week period, I think, where we've had a stretch where we didn't talk about user credentials or something being used on Microsoft to take advantage of their platform. So, you know, great, I guess. But if Microsoft found it, then you got to imagine it's been happening for longer than they know, because they have some shortcomings on their end too. Just be aware. Be aware.
Their research team seems to be okay in terms of.
I mean, Len, they're not finding stuff on their own platform. I would be concerned about that if I was an MSFT user, like a personal user. But alas, that's it, buddy. That was number 330. Happy New Year to you guys. If we don't see you online until next week, and in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of the holiday.
Yeah, have a wonderful rest of the year, and Happy New Year.